I was raised in the church that follows the teachings of William Branham. We used to call ourselves believers, or rather message believers, the people that believes in the message of William Branham. From childhood all through to adulthood, his message was all I knew in and of itself as my only ticket to heaven. I believed William Branham to be a true prophet of God. Branham portrayed himself as the only person in the entire world with true Bible teachings and claimed that everything that he prophesied came to pass. During my early years in his message following, I was subjected to immense indoctrination. I remember during Sunday school, we were taught that Branham was the last messenger to this age. All those that didn't believe his message will perish or will never make it in the rapture. He performed many miracles and wonders, and he could create things out of nowhere. So basically, I would say it was more like 90% teachings about Branham and 10% the Bible. This made me think of Branham as an equivalent to God in level and measure. Then we were taught of how God punished the people that challenged Branham, how that God would smite them with an illness, a curse, or even death. This instilled a great level of fear in me. I was scared that if I say anything bad about this prophet of God, something bad might happen to me. To say the least, to me, Branham was this perfect, all-knowing, God-fearing, and humble person I ever knew. But then later, something happened. I then left the message church, and that is what I will talk about in this video. I want to tell you the reason why I left the message of William Branham. There is no sense of freedom, and leaders have an overly legalistic approach towards their members. There is a list of rules that you should follow, and you are always checked on almost everything you do. Your dress code and your only friends are the people who believe the same message, and those that don't believe or follow the message of William Branham were viewed as unbelievers or sinful people. This created an unhealthy environment, very difficult to effectively socialize and interact with other people that didn't believe the same message. We were not allowed to play ball games, and certain boys and men's haircuts were not allowed. Women were not allowed to wear wigs and makeup. TVs were not allowed. I grew up in a home that had no TV, not because my parents couldn't afford buying one, but because our church didn't allow their members to have TVs in their homes. Not until I think about the age of 12, after the pastor bought one. That is when my parents bought us the TV. So all that we had were these layers of rules after rules, and we were all forced to obey and follow these rules. No one was allowed to challenge the status quo. In fact, when one dares challenge, there was a special punishment for that. In the message, William Branham is the central figure. He is this promised Elijah the prophet to the Gentiles in the end time, whom God used to restore the world. Message followers support this by quoting the scripture from the book of Malachi chapter 4 verse 5 to 6, which reads, verse 5, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord." 6, "And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." Now this becomes very problematic when you read the book of Malachi in full context. When we go to Malachi chapter 1 verse 1, it reads, verse 1, "A prophecy, the word of the Lord to Israel through Malachi." The scripture clearly gives who the target audience was for this prophecy, and this happens to be Israel. This shows that there is no Gentile figure that can fulfill this prophecy other than an Israelite. On the other hand, Branham's interpretation of Malachi 4 also contradicted what Jesus Christ taught when he said it was John the Baptist that fulfilled that. Jesus clearly says in Matthew chapter 17 verse 12 to 13, and it reads, "But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them." 13, "Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. So this rules out Branham to be the Elijah prophet to the Gentiles. And anyone with a smear of understanding can tell that Branham's Malachi interpretation was wrong. Through research, I came to discover many incidences where Branham would say one thing in this sermon and say another thing in a different sermon. The first example I would give is where Branham preached against the Trinity and said it was a satanic teaching or belief. And then in another message, he would support and pray using the same Trinity, depending on his audience. Another example is about a man from Windsor. In this story, Branham relates about a man who faked an illness to try to expose Branham as a fraud. Through Branham's alleged prophetic gift, he exposed this man and condemned him to suffer from the sickness that was written on his prayer card. William Branham told this story for the first time in 1950 and said the man asked for forgiveness and he was forgiven. But the problem is, Branham retells the same story about 11 times from 1953 to 1963. But the story changes over this period of time. In other versions of the same story, Branham said this man received paralysis. He was struck with an illness. He died about a year later. He died about 6 weeks later. This made me rethink about who Branham was. I asked myself the question, was William Branham really honest? Because looking at these changing statements, they tell you something. William Branham clearly lied, because if he told the truth, these statements about this story would have been consistent. William Branham claimed that not one single prophecy or vision that he had ever failed. Is this true? Well, let's find out. The municipal bridge vision. William Branham said he had this vision when he was about 5 or 6 years old, which is approximately 1914, while playing marbles with his brother. He said he saw 16 men that dropped off of this bridge during construction and died. And 22 years later, which is approximately 1936, this vision was fulfilled. The problem with this vision is that the Louisville Municipal Bridge, which is called the George Rogers Clark Memorial Bridge in modern day, was opened in 1929 and not 1936. And evidence shows that only 2 fatalities occurred during the construction of the bridge. Another problem is that William Branham had this vision 22 years prior to the accident. So if we go back 22 years from the time the bridge was opened, which is 1929, this gives us 1907 as the time William Branham had this vision. But another problem is that by 1907, William Branham was not yet born. In addition, similar fatalities were recorded during the construction of the Big 4 Bridge. The construction of the Big 4 Bridge was launched in 1888 and the bridge was opened to the public in 1895. 16 deaths were recorded during the construction of this bridge. You see the confusion now? Did William Branham refer to the construction of the Big 4 Bridge, which happened before he was even born? Or what can we make out of this? This vision clearly failed. The brown bear vision. In 1962, William Branham had a vision that he would shoot and kill a brown bear which would be as twice the size as the silver-tipped grizzly bear he shot earlier in 1961, and that it was thus saith the Lord. Unfortunately, William Branham passed away on December 25, 1965, and this vision was not fulfilled. The vision of the number of angels changing. On December 23, 1962, in the sermon Reproach for the Cause of the World, William Branham narrates a vision he had where he saw 5 angels. He counted them. He was so precise about the number being 5. A week later in the sermon, says what is the time, preached on December 30, 1962, Branham narrated the same vision, but except this time around the number of angels changed from 5 to 7. And Branham maintained this number 7 in later versions of his sermons that followed. The question I asked myself is, why would the number of angels change from the same vision? Clearly, William Branham lied and never confessed to the people that he lied. Looking at this, did William Branham pass the test of a prophet as outlined by Moses in Deuteronomy 18? verse 20 to 22, which reads, "But a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, is to be put to death." 21. "You may say to yourselves, how can we know when a message has not been spoken by the Lord?" 22. "If what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Lord does not take place or come true, that is a message the Lord has not spoken. That prophet has spoken presumptuously, so do not be alarmed." William Branham taught the serpent seed doctrine, that the original sin in the Garden of Eden was not eating a fruit. It was a sexual sin, and that Eve had sexual intercourse with the serpent and then gave birth to Cain, who was the son of the serpent, and Abel was the son of Adam. This doctrine has little to no support from scriptures if read in full context. Sources indicate that William Branham learned this doctrine from Roy Davis, who happens to be a high-ranking member of the Ku Klux Klan, and the serpent seed doctrine happens to be one of the fundamental doctrines of the KKK. William Branham also taught that you can divorce your wife if she cuts her hair. It is thus saith the Lord, but this teaching has no support from scripture. William Branham heavily plagiarized or stole most of his fundamental teachings from other Bible scholars such as Clarence Larkin and Charles Taze Russell. Some of these include the 7 church ages, the revelation of the 7 seals, future home of the heavenly bridegroom and the earthly bride, and many more. The problem is that Branham claims to have gotten these revelations from God, and since he never gave credit to the original authors, I can confidently say he stole these teachings. And what does the Bible say about this? In Jeremiah 23 verse 30, the scripture says, "Therefore, declares the Lord, I am against the prophets who steal from one another words supposedly from me." So I leave it for you to judge. There are many heretical doctrines and failed prophecies that I can highlight and other issues of plagiarism, but because I want to keep this video as short as possible, let me say this in closing. Living the message is not easy. There are strands of psychological and social programming you don't realize is there until you start to remove them. There is this quote that says, "It is easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled." And once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. My reason for making this video is to help someone who is in the same situation I was in, who is questioning and wondering, can also have another view to lean on. I didn't leave the message so that I can start committing sin. I left the message because of the things I have talked about in this video, and chose to live a simple Christian life, believing and trusting in Jesus Christ. And let me tell you, there is a sense of freedom on this side like you've never experienced before. I would like to hear from those who might have some questions. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay blessed out there.